How and why did the Kc-135 tanker crash? Currently, several scenarios are under consideration. One possibility is a mid-air refueling accident where the refueling boom snapped, causing the trailing tanker to collide with the Lee aircraft's tail. A second scenario suggests that Iraqi militias may have targeted the plane with a surface-to-air missile. Finally, a third theory focuses on a potential collision caused by the tight flying formation of the two tankers. So how exactly did this gas station crash? On March 12, 2026, tragedy struck in the skies over western Iraq. Here is exactly what we know about the recent crash involving a U.S. Air Force Kc-135 Stratotanker. The incident happened in what is considered friendly airspace while the aircraft was actively supporting Operation Epic Fury. According to CENTCOM and public flight tracking data, this wasn't an enemy shootdown. It was an apparent mid-air collision between two Kc-135s operating in tandem. One of the massive tankers went down in the Iraqi desert. The second aircraft immediately declared an in-flight emergency. Flight trackers watched as the surviving jet circled off the coast before finally making a desperate but safe landing at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. When photos of the surviving plane emerged, the damage was shocking. A massive chunk of its vertical tail fin was completely sheared off. But how does an accident like this actually happen? When mid-air collisions occur between these 150-ton flying gas stations, it usually comes down to one of three terrifying scenarios. Scenario 1 is passing the gas. To keep strike packages in the fight longer, tankers often transfer fuel to each other. The receiving jet has to fly just feet below the leader's tail. A tiny throttle mistake or a sudden gust of wind can cause the massive jet to surge forward, instantly smashing its cockpit right into the leader's tail. The margin of error is basically zero. Normally, a standard Kc-135 tanker mission flies with a minimum crew of 3, a pilot, co-pilot, and boom operator. However, officials have reported that at least 6 U.S. service members were aboard the aircraft. But U.S. Central Command wrote at approximately 2 p.m. on March 12, a U.S. refueling aircraft went down in western Iraq. 4 of 6 crew members on board the aircraft have been confirmed deceased as rescue efforts continue. Scenario 2 is when tankers flying in the dark. In combat zones, tankers fly in tight groups to hide from enemy air defenses. They go completely dark. Their radios, no active radar, and lights out. If a pilot gets disoriented during a nighttime turn, they can easily drift off course and fly completely blind right into their wingman and crash right into their tail or clipping off their wing section, thus resulting into a mid-air collision. Scenario 3 involves Iran's ongoing influence through proxies loyal to the regime. There was initial speculation that these forces might have fired a surface-to-air missile, bringing down one of the aircraft. But CENTCOM has officially stated that the crash was not caused by hostile or friendly fire. Given this official statement and the specific damage to the surviving plane's tail fin, all evidence currently points toward a mid-air collision or an accident involving the two tankers. The real reason behind all this? It might just be a misinterpretation of data. Why are these Kc-135 tankers considered the lifeblood of this operation? Because without them, the operation simply cannot happen. Striking Iran from European bases like those in Cyprus, Greece, or Bulgaria means aircraft must cross immense distances. Fighter jets like F-35s or F-16s simply do not have the internal fuel capacity for a multi-thousand-mile round trip. The Kc-135 tankers act as a floating bridge. They rendezvous with the strike packages mid-air to top off their tanks, allowing them to penetrate Iranian airspace, drop their payloads, and make it back to Europe safely. If the tankers don't fly, the strike jets are grounded. So how does the U.S. Navy factor into this massive geographic shift in strategy? During Operation Epic Fury, Allied bases were denied to American forces, so the flying tankers steps in. If key nations like Qatar and Saudi Arabia deny permission for military action from their soil due to political constraints, the U.S. has to activate its second strategy. This means bypassing the immediate region for staging the attack and instead launching from the perimeter using European bases. However, distance is the ultimate enemy in aerial warfare, which completely rewrites the tactical playbook. The core of the new strategy is a massive logistics shift, heavily relying on the deployment of an armada of flying gas stations. The U.S. will employ a coordinated deployment of dozens of Kc-135 Stratotanker air-to-air refueling aircraft. These are moving from the continental United States and the UK directly into bases in Greece such as Suda Bay and Bulgaria. These supertankers help carrier-based jets stay airborne for much longer. They also act as a crucial lifeline for B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, especially if those bombers need to enter Iranian airspace before the US has achieved air superiority. The Kc-135 stratotankers, laden with fuel, loiter in friendly airspace over Saudi Arabia, their crews aware that their unglamorous task could mean the difference between triumph and catastrophe. As the B-2s lift off, their jagged silhouettes blend into the night sky. Stealth is their shield, but distance is their enemy. Hours into the flight, they rendezvous with tankers flying over the canal, gulping fuel midair as F-A-18s circle protectively. The growlers emit a cacophony of electronic noise masking the strike group's movements. Meanwhile, in underground command centers, U.S. analysts watch real-time feeds ready to redirect forces if Iran's radars flicker to life. Israel also used the same tactic to attack Iran. Well, the supertankers were the lifeline for the mission. At 9 in the morning, Israel launched more than a dozen aircraft, but it's a complicated process. They have to navigate or entirely bypass the airspace of neighboring countries like Syria and Iraq. To avoid hostile air defenses, defense analysts estimate the actual flight distance to reach central Iran is between 930 and 1,240 miles each way. Although these routes may seem straightforward, they involve complex planning, including calculations for air refueling and coordinating attack aircraft to pass through Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. Israel and U.S. strategy was to attack Iran in 3 waves. The first wave targeted surface air-to-air sites, radar installations, and Iran's air defense headquarters in Tehran, Elam, and Khuzestan. The second wave focused on destroying ballistic missiles, and finally, the third wave targeted military manufacturing industries. With the air defense network fractured by Tomahawk cruise missiles, usually fired from destroyers hundreds of miles away, the path is now clear. Now comes the strategic sites like nuclear bunkers, which can be bombed by B-2's Spirit, the tip of the spear. Launching from bases in Jordan and the UAE, squadrons of F-15E Strike Eagles roar into the theater. These are the bomb trucks of the operation. Each F-15 is heavily laden with GDMs and small-diameter bombs. Interestingly, it can carry up to 19 GDAMs or 28 small-diameter weapons. While the B-2s hit the deep bunkers, the F-15s hunt the mobile targets. Their ADSA radars scan the ground for ballistic missile launchers hiding in valleys. Working in pairs, they drop precision bombs on missile convoys, hangars, and secondary command nodes. Once they are Winchester, out of ammo, or low on fuel, they don't go home yet. They connect to this tanker common launch tube that fits into almost any aircraft's existing fuel hatch. They retreat to those tanker tracks established in Phase 1, taking on thousands of pounds of jet fuel in midair before turning back for a second sortie.